Today, we're going to talk about how to take back your energy and stop getting drained. Because you've done the work, you cleared already so much, right? You got this powerful awareness, and yet somehow deep inside, you still might be waiting for this external confirmation of your worth. Or maybe you have set your boundaries. You have learned to say no. You even walked away from situations that didn't feel aligned. But somehow you still feel like you're defending against whatever the world is throwing at you instead of truly owning and claiming your space. And maybe you've manifested already a lot. Maybe you've visualized whatever you want your future to be. Maybe you've done all this energy healing work on yourself. And yet somehow it still feels like an uphill battle no matter what you do, as if sovereignty is just out of reach from your natural state. I get it. Many of my students started right in this place. But what if I told you that it's not that you don't know maybe what boundaries are, you have a conceptual understanding of what you're supposed to do, how the boundaries, supposed to look and what to do in your mind, but this is not embodied. And without it being embodied, it doesn't have the effect that you want your boundaries to have on your life. So in this training, I will show you how to recognize 3 types of false boundaries that actually drain you, so you don't go into those. Okay? What true sovereignty actually is, and how to stop getting invaded by other people's energies and non-physical entities, if you're into that as well, so that nothing can mess with you. Okay? So let's dismantle the illusions here and get to the core of becoming truly sovereign. So you're a conscious person, a sensitive to energy person, probably empathic, and despite all the work that you have done, you still get this feeling of being invaded by other people's emotions, their opinions, expectations, their energy maybe. Even though you have set boundaries, even though you walked away from toxic situations, still you kind of feel drained. And most people misunderstand what sovereignty actually is, so that they try to fix this in the incorrect way, which doesn't work. And then it just keeps you in this cycle of feeling like something invades your space all the time. Okay. Sovereignty is not about control. It's not about force or resistance. It's about definition of your energetics, the clear, undeniable truth about who you are being. When that is non-existent, most people have no idea who they're being. That's why majority of human beings are not actually sovereign. So when you lack sovereignty, your life might look like this. You feel emotionally exhausted after interactions, as if others siphon your energy. You second guess your choices because other people's opinions kind of get tangled in with your own intuition. You struggle with anxiety or maybe over responsibility, feeling like you have to manage other people's reactions all the time to whatever it is that you're choosing to do. This is not just frustrating, it could actually be very disempowering. So here is the thing. No one is going to hand you sovereignty on a silver platter like, there it is, now you have sovereignty, a gift from, your energy guide or something like that. It doesn't work like that. You actually have to claim it for yourself. Sovereignty is not granted, it is chosen. And this choosing is not a one and done deal. It's a way of being, something that you commit to every single day, no matter what is happening around you, and keep choosing it. Most people think that sovereignty is just about boundaries, like big, strong, impenetrable walls. As long as you have that, you're good. Like, now you're sovereign. And yes, boundaries are really important and necessary. But if your boundaries are built from anger, from defense, from fear, then they just become a false sovereignty, like a firewall that keeps out everything, including support, including connection, including abundance, and all the other good and yummy things that you actually want. So you want to be able to receive those good things from the universe, right? Like love, like wealth, like connections, support, helpful opportunities, helpful people to come to you. You want to be able to receive that. Well, if boundary is set up from defense, you block all those good things because you're defending against life. This is very important to understand. For all of you who constantly want protection and defense, understand that by going in that direction, you're actually blocking good things from your life as well. If your boundaries feel exhausting to maintain, it's a sign that they are coming from defense instead of true certainty. Sovereignty is clarity of your own domain, not a wall to block invisible invaders. Inside this internal certainty, you decide your space, your energy, your reality without needing to fight for it, because you already made a decision that that is included in what is your personal space. Okay? Having to fight for your sovereignty, it comes from an assumption that you're not sovereign to begin with. And that's based on the idea of you not being a divine being, which is why a lot of these protection spells and whatever people do to constantly protect from the dark of the world actually sabotages their ability to create anything and drains them, because the energy is actually siphoned from them instead of coming to them. So I don't want that for you. I want you to be able to receive beautiful things from the universe. But to do so, you need to be in a sovereignty that is naturally aligned with who you are, which is based on you being a divine being. In other words, if your identity is too low, like I'm my body, I am my human personality, like the low stuff, not I am the divine being, then you forever get yourself stuck in this defending instead of defining. Sovereignty defines your domain, your kingdom. And that is only possible from the divine self identity, the higher identity, okay? So let's see who you're being here and what kind of boundary you are creating in your life, sovereign or the artificial defensive one, okay? So ask yourself this: do I feel like I'm constantly on guard, waiting for the next energy drain to hit me, another shoe to drop? Ask yourself this: am I putting up walls to keep people out? Or am I creating clarity that naturally repels misalignment? Do I actually trust my boundaries? Or do I secretly worry they will not hold unless I fight for them all the time? Is my energy leading my interactions, or am I reacting to what others throw at me? Do I define who I am from my divine self? Or am I reacting to what others expect me to be? You can pause this training and actually write down the answers to those, because that's going to help you a lot to understand where you are with your sovereignty. Sovereignty is not about defending, okay? So this is the foundational part of this training. It's about embodying a frequency that naturally repels misalignment without resistance, okay? Here, let's look at 3 most common false boundaries, because when you understand the false boundary, you can recognize them and you can know what to do if you happen to fall into one of those categories, one of those 3 false boundaries, and how to get out of it into a harmonious one. So I'll tell you that towards the end of the training. But for now, let's unpack each of the 3 most recognizable negative boundaries, which are anger, shame, and dissociation. So anger is a natural self-defense mechanism, and sometimes a firewall is totally needed, like an immediate response to actively dangerous situation. But that's not really what we're talking about. Most people, unfortunately, use anger incorrectly, not as a momentary charge to realign your field and maybe push something out, but as a habitual stance against life. And that is definitely a problem. Because anger can be a purifier and a positive when it's used as the sharp, clean nope, like a misalignment, no, and it realigns, it pushes out something that's off. Split second spark of fire, that's it. That's what redefines your space. And in the energy field, it can look like a flash of fire element across the astral level. That's a temporary firewall. So fire element kind of creates like a shell around your field for a split second. But this is really like meant to last a split second, maybe 2 seconds. That's it. It's a statement of personal sovereignty in that moment as a redefining your space. But if this is maintained longer, and most people, once they get angry, they kind of in that for at least 5 minutes and maybe hours and maybe days, maybe years sometimes. So if it's maintained longer, then it becomes a severe detriment to you because now it drains life force from you instead of supporting you. Habitual anger is a negative fire element that is stuck on the inside and can't seem to get out. That's why people feel like they're always angry and always ready to snap. They're frustrated. That energy is the fire element that's stuck. It turns into chronic rejection of life. It builds a wall that keeps you stuck in the victimhood, and it makes someone else responsible for whatever your experience is, which is blame. Like we end up blaming others, blaming life, blaming circumstances instead of ownership. So fire ends up actually using you instead of you using it for your boundary. Now, what is sovereignty looks in a positive sense when the fire element is balanced, because that's the state you actually want to be in. When sovereignty is real and aligned, you do not need anger at all to enforce it because your fire element is healthy and it's just already naturally defining it. Your presence itself becomes your boundary. Instead of defending your energy, you simply do not attract invasions because they just don't resonate with how you show up in the world, okay? Instead of over-explaining yourself, you radiate energetic clarity. So others respect you without you having to do anything about it. It's just a natural sort of expectation of respect that is earned by you naturally holding yourself correctly in your space. All right, now, the second most common incorrect boundary is shame. It's a defense mechanism that kicks in when you feel like you're not living up to who you believe you should be. For example, you believe you should be strong, brave, smart, loving maybe, but your actual current life circumstances don't match this. So then you respond in shame, which then acts as a false boundary to protect you from external punishment that you anticipate for not being what you think you should be. In other words, you end up punishing yourself, like a pre-punishment. Instead of waiting for something to punish you, you punish yourself. Okay? This distortion starts in the childhood. When you did something wrong as a kid, your parent or your teacher maybe punished you, and that might be like harsh words or withdrawal of attention or some other consequence that you got for that. And over time, you just learn to self-police. So you apply the shame as a self-punishment, kind of like, well, I did bad, so now punishment should happen, so I punish myself. This way, some external teacher, parent, or whatever other people don't need to punish me because I already punished me. That's what shame is. It is a boundary, but it's a false boundary that actually diminishes you. If this is your habitual false boundary choice, this means that you are policing yourself into blocking love from the universe, right? Like, I don't deserve it, I'm bad, so I'm going to punish myself. And like, you literally block love, kind of like how the parent maybe blocked their love to you, saying, well, I conditionally love you. You did bad, so now I don't love you. You're doing the same thing, only to yourself on the inside. In the energy field, shame looks like negative water element. So instead of a beautiful lake, it starts to look kind of like a swamp. Muddy, dark, heavy. This heaviness serves as the false boundary, blocking external love. So self-punishment for not being good enough, essentially. You already pre-decided you're not good enough, and now you're punishing yourself for it. This turns into chronic not good enoughness. You start to believe you actually are not good enough always, instead of sometimes circumstantially. It blocks you from support. and loving resolution of your lessons, because how can you learn if you already decided that you're not good enough and not capable? And it punishes you as a habit that's based on someone else's idea of who you should be. Instead of you defining you, now you essentially relinquish this definition right to somebody else. So now, what does sovereignty looks like with the balanced water element, which is, what we want to know here, because that's the sovereignty we want to be in. The healthy sovereignty with the water element, you do not need to self-police because you self-defined and self-navigate. So the presence is self-loving, self-responsible. Instead of punishing yourself, you question and modify your beliefs. Very healthy approach. Instead of drowning in this feeling bad situation, you open up to see yourself as a divine being. You remind yourself that you are, and you're able to critically address any shortcomings that you notice in a particular situation, and at the same time acknowledge your strengths in that situation. So instead of just kind of generically like, oh, I'm always messing this up. Oh, I always end up, not being loving, or I always end up being stupid, or I say something stupid all the time. Like all this always, forever. These things are means how we feed our shame boundaries, which are actually negative and draining. If you want to have a healthy boundary with the water element, then you want to make sure that you look at each situation individually while remembering yourself to be a divine being. So the third most common false boundary is disassociation. It's a defense against intense feelings. It's often used as a boundary to separate from circumstances that we do not like an automatic response when you feel overwhelmed, overloaded, confused, or maybe even in pain. And as you know, you are only able to move through a lesson, to learn the lesson, if you allow yourself to fully experience the lesson. So in the fact of disassociating from it, you can't deal with what the circumstance is because you are not there, which means the lesson remains unlearned. When we face difficult circumstances, from confrontation when somebody maybe is angry at you, to challenging yourself maybe when you're speaking your truth, or having to make a decision that may be difficult, like any kind of a situation like that, if you don't pull away, if you have a strong boundary while you do that, you can deal with the difficulty instead of essentially avoiding it by disassociating. If you have a weak boundary or no boundary, you might doubt your capacity to handle the situation. And this is where disassociation comes in. So you can see that the doubt of the capacity creates the incorrect boundary of disassociation. In other words, disassociation comes as a constant habit where you struggle to handle your lessons, and you end up kind of not living your life at all because you're trying to avoid it all because you don't believe you can live it. And that is a cycle that must be broken in order to evolve, essentially, to the next level of yourself, to move through any kind of a lesson, no matter what it is. So many people spend their life in this disassociating boundary, which makes them numb and avoidant of living. And people like that, they're afraid of living more than death itself. Dying is not a problem, but living, oh my God, I don't know how to do this. I don't know if I'm capable. So fear of living more than fear of death. Disassociation is a distortion of the air element. When we mentally check out instead of staying present to what is happening. So if this is a habitual boundary of choice, then it's like living in a house with all the lights dimmed at all times. Universe, your guides, your soul, nothing can be heard because you just turn off the lights, essentially. In the energy field, disassociation boundary looks like negative air element. So this is ungroundedness. Too much air. The lower part of the energy field is empty. Nobody's inhabiting it. The movement of energy is minimal. Nothing is circulating. And the field might even appear kind of frozen, like no movement. It turns into chronic numbness and avoidance. And people often mistake this for depression, thinking like, oh, I'm depressed. And it's like, no, actually, you're energetically trying to disassociate from something because you don't believe you're capable of facing it. And then emotionally, that might be mistranslated as depression in some situations. It blocks you from having any positive emotion like joy or love or pleasure or play, which is why we think that we're in depression. It limits your capacity to process energy, becoming then a self-fulfilling prophecy, since the fence is based on the belief that you're not capable of handling what it's coming, and now you literally can't process energy, so you are not capable. You kind of prove your own point. So what does this look like? The sovereignty in a positive sense with the air element. This is what we want. When sovereignty is real, you do not need to leave your body. You allow circumstances to unfold in front of you, experiencing at the pace that you actually in control of, uncovering within yourself hidden reserves, perhaps, right? Finding inner gifts to face the situation with, finding talents to handle the lessons. Instead of withdrawing, you face whatever's happening at your own pace, being in control of what enters your domain. You do not block it, you measure it, and you deal with it. Instead of showing up kind of slow down or frozen in your emotional flow, sort of disassociated, you allow yourself to feel and uncover new depths while being open to support from your soul, your guides, the universe, and other people as well. Okay? And if those energetics I'm talking about, with the different movement of energy and different elements and different levels, sound exciting but kind of confusing, and maybe you don't know energy anatomy as well, elements like fire, air, water, like what role do they play within your system? And maybe you're curious about your energy anatomy and want to master it so that you actually know what element you're experiencing, which level it is, which chakras are involved. You want to understand the elementals, the chakras, how to clear blockages, how to heal yourself, then definitely get my book, Mission Alpha, The Wise and Passionate You. It is a 300-page manual essentially on your energy anatomy that fully decodes your energy field and helps you be empowered in how you live your life. So definitely check it out. I will put the link in the notes. All right. Now let's look at what true sovereignty actually is. Okay? Sovereignty is your inherent right to govern yourself and make your own decisions without external interference. It's the ultimate authority over your body, your emotions, your thoughts, and your actions. At its core, sovereignty means self-ownership. It's an ability to navigate your life on your own terms without needing approval, permission, or external validation. So you might think of it in this way. You are a king or queen of your domain. You are 100% responsible for what happens inside of you. Your emotions, your thoughts, your beliefs, your choices, 100% responsible. You are 100% responsible for what you allow on the inside of your energetic space. That gives you a lot of power if you start thinking this way. You decide who has access to your life and on what terms that happens. You own the power of consent, your ability to say yes or no to what affects you. So let's look at what sovereignty feels like in your energy field when you're harmoniously sovereign. Energetically, true sovereignty is not about any walls. Okay, we already talked about that. It's about clarity and flow. And it shows up in two ways. One is that you have a strong vertical tube of energy running through the center of your field, from the root chakra to the crown chakra, and both sides are open, so the energy is able to circulate and be taken in from the universe. This alignment keeps you deeply connected with the source, with divine self, with the planet. You become part of the equation by having your vertical tube open. And the second part is a powerful yet permeable boundary. So this is like an eggshell or membrane around your bubble, okay? It's not a rigid wall. It's a breathable membrane that lets in what nourishes you and repels what does not. This allows you to interact with the world without absorbing any unwanted energies. So sovereignty is not isolation, it's mastery of your domain. It's the ability to stand in full presence without being influenced, manipulated, drained by external forces. And setting boundaries isn't about pushing people out. This is one of the common misconceptions is that, oh, I have boundaries. So it's like saying no, that's what it means. Like, not always. Okay. So it's about loving yourself enough to define your space. So turn it not about people, but it's about you loving you enough to define your space. It's also an act of love to others because when you're fully sovereign, your energy is clean, clear, and aligned. When you own your sovereignty, you stop overgiving, stop over explaining, stop absorbing other people's chaos as if it's your own, and stop waiting for permission to be who you actually are. When you have this clear boundary, you start living with clarity and ease, allowing support, love, abundance. If you've been trying to create abundance and wondering why it's not happening, well, perhaps you're blocking it because you're throwing baby out with the bathwater by the creating false boundary. So that's another aspect there that's really important. You also hold your energy in its highest frequency, no matter what's happening around you when you have sovereignty. So you become kind of like less influenced by the environment. Instead, you now can influence the environment positively. You actually end up helping collective humanity by doing that. Let's look at how to stop getting invaded by other people's energies. I'm going to go through many different components here with you to help you understand what you can do to keep realigning yourself. Because obviously, you know, being masterful and being in the sovereignty boundary at all times would be awesome, but doesn't happen all the time. We fall out and then we have to come back in. And the quicker you can do that, the more amazing your life will be, believe me. You now understand that sovereignty is not about walls. It's about clarity, definition, and self-mastery. How do you actually apply it onto daily life so that you don't absorb and pick up other people's energies? It's a shift from self-defense mode to embodied sovereignty. We're not talking about psychic self-defense. For that, I have a different training. Here, we're talking about constantly defending, like being in a defensive mode, versus embodied sovereignty, which is when you have a natural boundary that actually works to support you. And if you want everything I would be talking about here as an actual free sovereignty self-assessment, then you can grab it by following the link in the notes next to this video somewhere. So check that out because it would be a really good thing to practice with yourself. So step 1, recognize when your energy is compromised. So before you can stop something, you need to see it clearly. So ask yourself, do I feel drained, heavy, or irritated after being around certain people? Do I get emotionally entangled with others, mistaking their energy for my own? Do I feel like I owe others my time, my energy, my attention? Am I constantly adjusting my mood or actions to keep the peace or to avoid conflict? If you said yes to any of those, your sovereignty is being compromised. But here's the thing. It doesn't mean that others are invading you, okay? It's about your own energy responding incorrectly because it responds in a way that actually weakens your sovereignty. So then it maybe looks like or feels like it's other people's stuff when actually it's your own energetic response, which is good news because you're in control of it. You can change it. Maybe you are reacting instead of responding. Maybe someone is trying to manipulate you and you're feeling that resistance energy and it drains you. Maybe there is no literal invasion at all and your energy is just unconsciously adjusting to this external charge of somebody, and that makes your inner world go off balance, and that's what then you label as, oh, I'm being invaded. So most of the time it's not actually somebody else doing anything to us, it's us incorrecting responding to that. Most of the time, feeling being invaded is not somebody forcing their energy into your space. It's about you matching their frequency, which then creates an internal misalignment. So think of it like this. Instead of someone else's energy breaching your boundary and moving inside your field, it's your own energy adjusting to that external charge from a person or circumstance or an environment, which makes you feel that your inner world is not hospitable anymore. You're not feeling good within yourself. And it feels like an invasion, when in fact, it's actually your own energy mimicking the external force that gives you this sensation. Either way, recognizing that this is happening, that your sovereignty is compromised, no matter what the cause is, doesn't really matter, the first step in reclaiming it. 2, reclaim your space with the law of one energetics. So once you notice that your energy is compromised, you do not react, you realign, okay? So you can use this 5-part boundary reset process I'm going to tell you here to bring yourself into sovereignty again. I'll guide you through the steps so that you can maybe practice them for a moment here, and that's something you can apply in your own life. Activate, reset, recharge, affirm, and anchor. So let's unpack each step so you can understand a little more clearly what it looks like for you. Number 1, activate your boundary. Take a deep breath. Bring your awareness to your body. Feel the breath moving from your heart chakra to your root chakra, and then rising back up to your crown, aligning your vertical tube of energy. Expand your awareness outward. Your energy field extends at least 3 feet above and underneath you, and on the circumference, creating an egg shape aura. Let yourself feel that expansion. Breathe into it one more time. Okay, you got your bubble. Now scan your field. Notice if there's any dark spots, distortions, pressures, odd sensations. No need to fix anything, just observe. Okay. Now 2, we're now in the energy reset part. Feel your entire egg-shaped energy field. This is your sovereign kingdom. Remember, your field is governed by the law of one God source. You are naturally abundant, naturally powerful, and naturally whole. So that's a given. Say internally or out loud, repeat after me. By the divine authority of the law of one God source, I release anything that is not mine. And I call all my energy back to me now. Good. Now take a deep breath in and out. Feel the shift. Anything foreign gently leaves your field right now. And whatever is truly yours might be activated or coming back. Good. Now we're in a 3rd step of the process, which is a boundary recharge. So visualize this powerful light filling your energy field that you just cleaned up, restoring the clarity and strength. That's your energy coming back to you. Anything that was maybe given away that shouldn't have been leaving your field, now it's here. Okay. See your egg-shaped boundary becoming strong yet fluid. This is the outer membrane. It's not a wall, breathing, permeable membrane that allows in what you need and filters out what you don't. Good. Breathe deeply in. Inhale this pure universal life force. And now exhale anything that no longer serves you. Breathe in one more time and breathe out. Feel the disharmonious energies dissolving, effortlessly returning to their rightful place outside your system. Okay, good. Now we're in the fourth step, which is affirming your sovereignty. So say out loud or in your mind, by the divine authority of law of one God source, I am sovereign. My energy is mine. My space is mine. Good. Let this settle deeply in your system, reinforcing your energy, and feel this divine certainty of your sovereignty. Good. Now we're at the fifth step of this process, anchor in your divine flow. So visualize this rich green energy coming from the planet, infusing your field with grounding support. Good. Now see the gold white light streaming down from above into your crown chakra, merging in the central column. Two of them wrapping around each other. Let those energies intertwine in your vertical tube. This is the unbreakable pillar of your sovereignty within you. Feel that energy. This is the certainty of your own kingdom. Good. Feel your entire energy field expanding, free of burdens, fully aligned with the universe, held in light of your highest self. Good. Now breathe in and out. Feel the shift in your noticeable boundary now. You are lighter, you are clearer, you're back in control. Okay? So all of this was how you actually reset your boundary. And now, the third part of what we're talking about, the larger third step, is clarifying agreements, energetically and physically. Because no one can invade your energy without your permission, whether conscious or unconscious. People only cross boundaries if you are unclear about your own boundary. So this step is about getting crystal clear on what you choose to allow into your sovereign kingdom and what must stay out. Because if you don't know that, if you're just kind of leaving it to chance, well, it feels good or it doesn't feel good, that's not a good monitoring system, because your feelings quite often could be based on negative filters and, programming from, karmic overlays and so on. And then you end up inviting stuff you don't want. Okay. So we want to always make sure that we are clear on this ahead of time, and that is encoded in our boundaries. Okay. So first step is understanding other people's energies. So when you feel invaded by somebody else's negativity, if you constantly feel like other people's energies somehow affecting you, it usually falls into one of these three patterns I'm going to explain to you here. So one of the patterns is you're afraid of them, of whoever it is that's influencing you. This means that you see your power as smaller than theirs, and sovereignty actually requires you to reclaim your own authority. So you can ask yourself, like, where have I unconsciously given my power away? Or what am I assuming they have that I do not have? Or how do I amplify my presence next to them so that I don't need to defend anything? Okay, so this is the other people's energies. Number one was you're afraid of them. Another way, the second way here, is could be because you believe you deserve punishment. So if you feel drained around certain people, you can ask yourself, is there an unconscious belief that I deserve to be treated this way? Am I carrying some guilt or shame or self-judgment maybe that makes me tolerate this treatment? What would it feel like if I fully owned my worth? So understanding that would really help to clear this belief of deserving punishment. And another way, the third way that other people's energies can affect you is if you already depleted before you even show up. So like your boundary is already weak before you even enter the space where this circumstance or this person is. If this happens, you can recognize when your energy field is already low before the interaction, and then go back to the step 2, which was the boundary reset process, the 5 steps of the reset process that I taught you, and recharge your own energy, your own boundary, so then you don't come pre-deflated, okay? And that strengthens your energy so that external energy does not shake you when you do show up at the situation. This is all other people's energies when you invaded by somebody else's negativity. That's how you clarify the agreements. Another way is your own triggers, right? So far we talked about other people's energies. Now we're looking at your own. This is when your reactions feel like an invasion, but it's not. It's not somebody else invading your space. It's your own emotions throwing you off. Here is how this happens and what you can do about that. Maybe you feel incapable of handling the situation. So this is a capacity issue. This creates an internal power leak where overwhelm or confusion sets in before you even start. So then instead of staying stuck, you need to shift from your human self-identity, which feels limited, to your soul self-identity, which always has solutions, because our aspects that are higher can see more than our human self, okay? So you can ask yourself, what would my higher self do in this situation? If I hand this problem to the divine authority instead of trying to solve it myself from fear, what advice do I get? See how that kind of reshapes which identity is handling the situation? That's already hugely transformative. Another way how your own energy can be the emotional trigger that messes up the boundary is you are entangled in the false matrix belief. If your emotions feel hijacked by collective energy, like society, generational pain, politics and religion and so on, then something external could be manipulating your perspective on the situation. So you might need to do deeper work to fully break free from the false matrix structure. And all of that, by the way, is covered in depth in Escape from the False Matrix training, which I'll put the link in the notes so you can go there and study that. Another way how your energy could be feeling hijacked by your own emotional offness is if you are in a victim mode, expecting to be invaded. The reticular activating system in your brain will confirm whatever it is that you believe. So if you expect to be drained or invaded, you will only notice the experience of drained and invaded. So be radically honest with yourself. Do I secretly identify as a victim? Am I attached to the story that I'm being wronged? Personally, socially, generationally, politically, or karmically even. What would it feel like to step outside of that game? Who would I be? These questions help you to detangle yourself from that, because sovereignty is your birthright, but you must choose it over and over to maintain it. And you must exit the illusion of victimhood in order to be sovereign. So now that we understand what the invasion could look like from the outside or inside misalignments, now we can look at strengthening your agreements. We just looked at what agreements could be. Now how to strengthen in your energy and in your actions, whatever it is you're agreeing within yourself for your boundary to be clear. Even after doing the deep work, practical reinforcement is needed to hold your space consistently. And if someone constantly drains you, set the energetic intention. I do not allow this dynamic anymore, period. And then actually follow through, like do something about it. Limit your time maybe with this person, or redirect conversations from certain topics, or cut the cord even if necessary. But remember, simply removing the trigger does not solve the problem. You must actually heal the internal pattern that allowed it in the first place within yourself. Okay? If your energy feels too open to the outside influence, like if you're empathic and loving person and kind of doesn't have a clear boundary in there, well, then you need to clarify your personal identity because that's what determines your boundary. So ask yourself, who am I? And the answer could be my divine self. I am aligned with the universal energies of God's source. What do I allow? And the answer could be only what supports my personal evolution. Notice that doesn't mean only things that feel good, because sometimes they don't, but they are correct for you things, experiences, and people. Only what supports my personal evolution. What is non-negotiable? Another great question. Based on your core values, on your conscious choices, perhaps. If you struggle with saying no, practice micro boundaries, okay? Choose to interact, but limit how much. Allow yourself to feel discomfort, but only for 5 minutes before you readjust. Notice overwhelm, maybe take 5 minutes break before responding instead of reacting right away. And if you fall into this defensive pattern, just realign. It's okay. You're a human being. But the more you do that, like listen to this training again and again. There's so many things I just gave you that if you start recognizing them and adjusting them, practicing this is how you're actually going to change. But sovereignty is not about being perfect by any means. It's about choosing again and again to own your space. So master this, and then you don't wobble anymore in your sovereignty. You start moving through life with this unshakable clarity, strength, and ease. And you want to step into that unshakable sovereignty so you can live this way all the time. And to be honest, this is something that I know a lot of people struggle with. It's not easy to maintain continuously. You might try different energy exercises from this training or something else, and you get moment of relief and it feels good, and then you kind of fall out of it. You slip right back into the old patterns. I get that struggle. And even if you agree with everything that I've shared here, and hopefully you do because you're on a conscious path and you understand how important this is to maintain, it is hard when a real life situation happens and you find yourself reacting instead of responding, and you're slipping right back to maybe overgiving or self-doubt or exhaustion. I see this all the time. Many of my students have been there. But because sovereignty is not just a concept, it's something that's meant to be an embodied frequency, a deep energetic shift that requires not just understanding, but practice. It demands conceptual upgrade so that you stop seeing yourself as a separate from your own authority, that you actually reclaim that authority. A full recalibration so that your energy no longer defaults into the defense and depletion, but it knows how to maintain that authority. And that you are consistent in your practice so that you don't lose your sovereignty. Instead, it becomes a second nature, not a momentary thing that you done only when you remembered. And I have literally a course for this. It's called the Lion's Gate. It's literally designed for this. What if sovereignty was not a struggle? Wouldn't that be awesome? So if you could step out of this chaos of your life, political, social, emotional, karmic, and rise above it all, that's when you maintain your sovereignty all the time. No longer feeling drained by other people's emotions or expectations. No longer looking for any external validation or permission or approval to be powerful. No longer getting hooked in the false matrix of blame, division, struggle. Just imagine holding your energy so clearly that nothing destabilizes you. Moving through the world as a sovereign creator, unshakable, unfuckwithable, like nothing can mess with you when you're in that state. Wouldn't that be awesome? Imagine tapping into the quantum abundance flow, alignment, and all of these things that you want so much, but with ease. because you're certain about who you are and the energy just naturally flows. This is what the Lionsgate course unlocks. Here is what you learn inside the course. Release us versus them struggle to break free from the collective chaos. Transcend blame, guilt, and manipulation so that you're no longer affected by this external noise. Stand in your power while embodying deep love and respect. And activate your sovereign authority using potent theta brainwave meditations that are specifically calibrated to help you realign your brain patterns, like literally reprogram your brain reticular activating system and your energy field, and become an unshakable force for harmony, abundance, and leadership in your life. So this isn't just about learning sovereignty. It's about becoming sovereign. And I know that it's hard to do on your own. So if you're ready to step into this unshakable sovereignty for good, and you've been waiting for the right moment to fully claim your spiritual independence, well, this is it. Okay, so click to access the course, the Lionsgate course that is in the notes below, and step into that frequency of true sovereignty, because once you are certain, the universe has no choice but to reflect that certainty back to you, allowing you to navigate through life with such a power and conviction and clarity and feeling safe and being loved and supported by the universe. So get the Lionsgate course. It's the link is in the notes, and I will see you in the next training. My love to you.